Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another exciting keynote address by Clinton Wingrove on the topic Design Thinking at the Heart of Digital Transformation. With the rising demand for increasing productivity, organizations implement technologies and try to automate their processes, but most of these implementations fail. In this exclusive keynote address, we will explore how design thinking can be leveraged for true digital transformation, deploying the power of contemporary technology, winning the hearts and minds of the employees and customers, and so equipping your organization to excel at what it does best. Clinton Wingrove is CEO and principal consultant at Clinton HR. He's an HR professional and consultant with over 35 years of experience, prior to which he worked in clerical work measurement, work study, computer systems and processes design, warehouse and inventory management automation, sales and customer service. All that after having started out with a joint honors BSc in physics and electronic engineering. Clinton believes passionately in HR and its ability to make a positive and measurable impact on the bottom line of organizations, as well as on the life of every individual employee. He spends his time using his knowledge, skills, and experience to help others to be effective managers and leaders, either by working with them directly or by working with the HR departments who design the processes and tools that they use. He combines skills in process design, data management, and contemporary technology during the design phases with an ability to communicate with, train, and inspire people during implementation. And as I've mentioned before, do keep sharing your thoughts and questions in the comment section. We have some exciting activities going on, and the participants with maximum participation will get to take away some fun prizes. And do keep engaging with the larger audience on social media by using the hashtag ETHRNextTechME. And without any further delay, let me invite Clinton to deliver his keynote address. Over to you, Clinton.
Hi, I'm Clinton Wingrove and have been involved in the application of new technology to business since the mid-70s, and much more recently spent 12 years as the CEO of a bespoke software house and consultancy in New Jersey, USA. So digital transformation is in my heart as well as my mind. The professional press presents a proliferation of articles about digital transformation, and all of those articles proclaim the benefits to be accrued from it. But, of course, digital transformation is not easy. So, whilst the articles tempt us with the benefits, they also highlight the challenges. And, of course, they present their magic processes for addressing those challenges. Some start with design your organization's goals. Some with what is the optimal customer experience? Some with start by identifying your technology gaps. And some identify the data that could be integrated. Some have very few steps and some too many. Confusing? Of course. So how do we explain such divergence? Closer inspection reveals that the majority of those articles are authored by digital transformation product and service vendors. And guess what? Their products and services just happen to address the challenges that they each cite. Indeed, the process each one recommends is deliberately unique, aimed to differentiate them in the marketplace. These processes are rarely research-based or groundbreaking. Many are creative marketing, repackaging of simpler problem-solving processes. Typically, the articles are targeting those who Everett and Rogers back in 1962 identified as the innovators and early adopters. They're seeking to capture the early majority, a total of around 50% of any market, to come on board with their solutions. Their targets are the people who actively look for new ideas. The article authors often provide little valid or reliable evidence to substantiate their claims of success beyond one or two case studies from organizations that may well be quite different to ours. One notable exception is the seminal article by Brian Solis of the Altimeter Group. He co-authored it with Jamie Smansky. It's a beautifully titled The Race Against Digital Darwinism, 6 Stages of Digital Transformation. They state that digital transformation is the realignment of or new investment in technology, business models, and processes to create new value for customers and employees and more effectively compete in an ever-changing digital economy. I'm happy to go along with that. And they argue that digital transformation depends on organizations working as one entity, and they lay out a series of 6 phases of digital evolution through which they go. Very briefly, phase 1, business as usual. Organizations operate with a legacy perspective of customers, processes, metrics, business models, and technology, believing that it remains the solution to digital relevance. Phase 2, present and active. Here, pockets of experimentation are driving digital literacy and creativity, albeit somewhat disparately, throughout the organization, whilst aiming to improve and amplify specific touch points and processes. Phase 3 is more formalized. Experimentation becomes intentional, while executing at more promising and capable levels. Initiatives become bolder, and as a result, change agents seek executive support for new resources and technology. Phase 4 is more strategic. Individual groups start to recognize the strength in collaboration as their research work and shared insights contribute, and they plan for digital transformation, ownership, efforts, and investments. And plan 5 is convergence. A dedicated transformational team forms to guide strategy and operations based on business and customer-centric goals. A new infrastructure often takes shape as roles and expertise and systems support the transformation as they're solidified. And then in phase 6, innovative and adaptive. Digital transformation becomes a way of business as the executives and strategists recognize that change is constant. A new ecosystem is established to identify and act upon technology and market trends in pilots and eventually at scale. It's sobering to reflect on where our organizations are on that evolutionary path. But of course, many of us are seeking to accelerate that evolution. We want to genetically modify our DNA and become a superior organization much more rapidly. My own experience suggests 2 things. First, that Brian's 6 phases can be clustered into 3 phases through which we've long known most deliberate technology adoption passes. 2, there's one critical success factor we must all address when attempting any digital transformation. More about that later. Let's go back to my 3 phases. First, and most obvious, is that we apply technology to what we currently do. This is always a comfortable place to start. After all, it's what we know and what we want to improve. Identifying opportunities for such technology improvements is not difficult. After all, we could automate things and increase efficiency. We could increase compliance. We could increase effectiveness by doing something new. In this early phase of digital transformation, organizations set their goals, define their business models, define their processes, and set their metrics and targets, and then look to apply technology to those. This approach is typically far from successful. Why? Because all existing processes and systems are compromises. They're built to accommodate deficiencies in prevailing data, deficiencies in resources, deficiencies in prior technology. So we end up automating flawed processes with the inevitable consequences. This approach often limits or even inhibits the very transformation that our organization may need. Early automation of HR performance management was a classic example, often doing little more than automating forms and process compliance. Even recent attempts do little to integrate data from operational systems, e.g., to pull in valid and reliable measures of performance with which to enhance appraisals. They do little to apply statistical techniques to detect, quantify, and then reduce the impact of appraiser bias in ratings, even though robust methods for doing so have existed since the late 70s. Instead, they often resort to automating invalid and unreliable appraisal calibration processes. But this early phase can be a seriously undervalued learning experience. It can be the spur to do something more impactful. But we must get through it quickly before reluctance and cynicism sets in. In order to capitalize on any digital transformation, we need a growth mindset, flexibility and adaptability, and the desire to go for BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goals. And that takes us to the second of my three phases, where we see organizations ceasing to automate existing processes and instead deferring to the technology experts. Let's leapfrog the competition. Go for the latest and greatest. Let's get the experts in. Some digital transformation consultants promote this as an optimal approach. As a senior executive of one ERP supplier told me once, our business strategy is to get control of the CIO or CTO, and everything becomes easier then. As Brian Solis posits, this is when experimentation, infrastructure investment, and cross-functional collaboration typically take place. And having found that automating flawed processes does not work, we happily turn to experts and ask what they can offer. Bright, shiny objects is invariably the answer. So this phase is often led by the technology providers, with us humbled by our prior less than successful engagement with technology. Those technology experts have great tools, but they often lack depth of experience or understanding of our client, our functional or our user requirements. They have solutions looking for matching problems. So in this phase, we must ensure that there's a genuine understanding of the desired outcomes, the processes, and most importantly, the data that are to be transformed or used. Serious mistakes can be made. As far back as the 80s, organizations were applying predictive analytics to automate applicant resume tracking. But unknowingly, biases in prior manual processes and systems were being embedded into the algorithms in the solutions. The exact opposite of what was being attempted, hoped for, and believed. More recent studies into diversity and inclusion and equity have shown that current digital transformations still continue to replicate this type of error. Facial recognition-based applications and many other forms of automated profiling have also been found to be similarly flawed. Even the simplest of mistakes caused by not fully understanding the processes or data can have costly outcomes. In the late 90s, a food manufacturer in New Jersey undertook a major data integration project, pulling together HR data, financial data, and operational data from multiple businesses that had been acquired. The data integration was left largely in the hands of the vendor. Concurrently, a corporate strategic initiative on diversity saw weekly reports produced on gender splits. But despite increasing investments in the program, little improvement showed up in the reports until someone asked the question, what data are we using to cut these analyses? It was then discovered that the field supposedly holding the code for gender had many values: null, M, F, 1, 2, male, female, not declared, and even MAIL. Only records holding M and F were being analysed and reflected in the reports. The data that met these criteria originated only from a very small company within the group. Those assigned to lead an organisation through this phase can easily experience the excitement of new technology, get caught up in the current trend and latest fad, and be overwhelmed by the apparent knowledge and expertise of the vendors. And it can take considerable time before we start to experience the longer term effects and realise that we've not gained the ROI we expected or were promised. For example, during the pandemic, we rushed headlong into rapid deployment of a morass of technology solutions to support remote working, virtual platforms, asynchronous collaboration tools, social networking applications, well-being applications, employee assistance programs, whistleblowing software, remote user monitoring tools, etc. But only now, approaching 3 years in, are we starting to measure the costs. Virtual platforms have enabled and even encouraged an increase in the number of meetings. Just prior to the pandemic, it was estimated that 11 million business meetings per day took place in the USA alone. That estimate has been increased to 29 million, with no increase in effectiveness. Indeed, 75% of meetings we've long known either do not achieve their goals or don't have any. Cognitive disconnect has been created with the sudden loss of the important, previously unseen, informal communication flow within organizations. This is almost as important to an organization's success as the blood flow around our bodies is to our well-being. But recent digital transformations have implanted a clot in our organization's cognitive circulatory systems. Emotional distancing, that loss of a true feeling of connection and empathy with others, is on the increase as we now understand the price of us becoming mere postage stamp blobs on a virtual communication wall. And the gross inefficiencies created by the avalanche of interruptions to our conscious thinking that most of us experience from team collaboration tools and emails, etc., are restricting the very efficiencies we sought to achieve. Yes, anxiety, cynicism, and hours connected to work are increasing dramatically. Trust, loyalty, and individual efficiency are collapsing. And none of those features appeared in the specifications or flyers for the digital solutions from which they arise. But let's go back to our 3 phases and look at phase 3. This is where things start to turn around. If we've learned from phases 1 and 2. In phase 3, those at the heart of the organization learn about and then seek to capitalize on the core power of contemporary technology and how it can support, enhance, and drive what they want and what they need done. The potential users need to be educated in the features and power of the technology and then engaged with the providers to design and implement what needs doing. It may seem obvious, but it rarely happens enough. Any sustainable solution must be developed as a joint venture. We've known since the 60s that this 3rd stage requires a high level of design thinking, that powerful combination of a rigorous design process and an in-depth understanding of the human psychological factors. Design thinking challenges us to explore and frame our goals very carefully and precisely, to ideate, to rapidly prototype, and to test before implementation. So if we're to benefit from digital transformation, we must be creative and define big, hairy, audacious goals. That can challenge us to revisit the very vision and mission of the organization, to challenge the customer experience that we want to deliver, to identify where we want to optimize efficiency with automation, to identify where, through data integration, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, we can gain step-changing insights into our businesses. Back in the 70s and early 80s, I worked in a very large multinational and immensely innovative company. I had the lofty title of Distribution Methods and Systems Engineer and had the privilege of leading the process and systems design component of a substantial digital transformation, the complete automation of a large distribution operation. This involved replacing largely paper processes, integrating data from multiple sources and systems, and applying advanced statistical techniques to such processes as material requirements planning, stock location, transport scheduling, etc. This was a multi-year, multifunctional, and somewhat expensive digital transformation project. The good news is the project was a success, but not as big a success as hoped for. In many companies, that would have been career limiting. But even back then, early adopters understood that failure is often the fastest route to significant success. So I was challenged to undertake some research and find out why the return on investment had not been as large as hoped for. Detailed investigation and analysis revealed that the processes designed were optimal, the systems designed were cutting edge, the data warehouse The name then for big data had been well designed and executed. The statistical modeling was working well. Even the equipment, workstations, ergonomics, and workplace lighting were optimal. The research was thorough. So what was limiting the return on investment? Remember earlier I said that my own experience suggested that there were 3 phases and 1 critical success factor to pay attention to. Well, this is that critical success factor. Quite simply, our return on investment was not as high as planned because we'd not won the hearts and minds of the users. Managers across the function were effectively communicating the message, ignore any advice the new systems present to you. Use your own judgment. This new stuff will go away eventually. Individual contributors were happy to do just that. They valued their autonomy and were proud of what they saw as their mastery over it. They wanted to preserve their autonomy and ability to make decisions, so they often overrode the system's recommendations and applied their prior thinking processes and principles. They approached the technology like a computer game, hunting for the cheats and metaphorically trading them with each other during the breaks. We had missed the importance of the human factors. So what's the bottom line? Digital transformation is about optimizing an organization's performance and sustainability by combining the power of contemporary technology with the insights that informed and committed humans can add. Whichever of the phase models you subscribe to, successful transformations all have common themes. Avoid automating what you already have. Set a big, hairy, audacious goal. Plan well and execute excellently based on the potential that digital transformation can offer your organization. Digital transformation is an ongoing process, not an event. Build a team and an organizational culture committed to an ongoing digital transformation. Develop knowledge internally of how it can benefit you. Apply the design thinking methodology to optimize the return on your investment. And make sure that you win the hearts and minds of your people at every step of your journey. Engage and educate them early. Tap into their functional expertise. Win their support and ensure that they see that digital transformation can empower them, not make them redundant. I've been Clinton Wingrove. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.
Thank you so much, Clinton, for this insightful session. Indeed, design thinking is going to be a key differentiator for organizations who want to be at the forefront of digital transformation, especially in the uncertain and changing times that we are living in. For our audience, we will now have a live Q&A session with Clinton in track 2 of the conference. Do join us there and ask Clinton questions that you've been seeking answers to. And coming up next is a case study presentation on digitally transforming work and workplaces, the Vodafone Way, by Bülent Bayram, Country Human Resources Director, Vodafone Turkey. Stay tuned and see you all there.